Buddy. So we are going to do a little something different today. We went out to eat and we had a Caesar salad at a very nice restaurant. It was a fun experience, but for me it wasn't great. And
the Caesar was shit.
It was terrible.
It was really bad.
And I was asking him, why was it not good? Like, I could not explain to you why I didn't love it. I just knew I didn't love it.
Yeah, I think it's the same answer that I will give you to the reason that most food isn't good, and it's seasoning. And in this case with the Caesar, like, it lacked a ton of seasoning. It lacked salt and it lacked acidity. I kind of like when I'm eating a Caesar for it to be pretty tart, but I also want a ton of flavor via anchovies, garlic, Parmesan. There's a lot going on in there that brings flavor, and this place just lacked all of it for me.
Yeah, so like a lot of times when you think Caesar, you think of something simple, right? Like you get like a pre-made salad, or maybe just like a bottle dressing. Like, what is going to hit different about like a really good Caesar?
Well, I think, like I just said, with seasoning, right? But also understanding how to season food properly in the way, like, these are high level cooking things that no one really talks about. But
this is the secret sauce.
This is the secret sauce, yeah. And I'm going to be pretentious about it because I never hear anyone talking about like the difference between seasoning a salad, seasoning a soup, or seasoning a sauce. Understanding how much of it you're eating and what the canvas is that it's going to be put on.
The 3 S's of cooking: the salads, the soups, and the sauces.
I didn't really realize that. The 3 S's. We're going to be focusing on the 3 S's today.
All right.
So when you look at a salad, right, you want a really flavorful dressing because what it's going on lacks everything. It generally lacks flavor. There's no fat. It's just a canvas for a good dressing, right? So I think understanding that better will help you understand how to make a better salad in general.
So don't just tell us, sweetie, show us.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go.
So we're going to start making our dressing today, and that is going to start with our acidic component, which in this case is going to be lemons. So I'm going to start off by juicing 2 lemons. Occasionally I will switch this up and maybe do a part of a good white wine vinegar, but today we're going traditional. Then we're going to get into our egg yolks. So that was me telling Josh not to crack the egg yolks on the side of the bowl. I've been yelled at about that one too many times. And then we're just going to separate those out. I personally like to do it by cracking them all into one bowl and then just using my hands to separate out the egg yolks. So I'm teaching Josh that little trick. And then we're going to start by building up our dressing. So we got 2 egg yolks, about 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, a couple squirts of Worcestershire sauce, 2 cloves of garlic, a good bit of anchovies if you're feeling up to it, liberally seasoned with salt and black pepper, and then a couple cubes of Parmesan, and then we're gonna go in with our lemon juice.
We've got all of our ingredients sitting here. I'm using a deli cup for this because it works perfectly for me. So you guys probably saw I added Parmesan in just little chunks instead of using grated Parmesan. And the reason I do that is honestly purely for laziness. Like, what you could do is you could shred it into there and that's fine. But for this is the easiest way for me to make a dressing. And when I'm making a dressing, this is my best friend.
Do some people use blenders?
Yeah, you could throw this all in like a Vitamix or like a Ninja blender. Not the Ninja sucks. The Ninja. But honestly, yeah, if you wanted to, this for me is perfect for this because I can throw everything in a container and then I'm gonna blend it up. And first, I'm gonna blend all of the base ingredients before I add some oil to it.
Okay.
So another tip for if you're gonna be lazy like me and you wanna blend chunky things with an immersion blender, sometimes it can tend to pop up. So what I like to do is once I put this in here, I'm gonna wrap a little paper towel around the outside. So that way,
look at that, Chef.
if anything chunks up in your way, sit.
You know this little paper towel trick? You won't spill it all over your Oxford t-shirt. You're good.
Yeah, you wanna stay clean. So right here what we have is our perfectly smooth Caesar salad base. So this has all the flavors in it. You're gonna taste it. It's extra salty. It's extra acidic, but then we're gonna add the oil in and it's gonna balance everything out.
Got it. So this is like a watery version of a Caesar salad dressing.
It is a
sans oil.
Yeah, sans oil and unemulsified dressing. But another great thing about adding an immersion blender is you don't need to stream everything in at once. So when I put this in, oil is just gonna sit there right at the top. And then when I hit it with that immersion blender, slowly lift it up.
And there we have it, a perfectly emulsified dressing. By using that immersion blender, it takes away the need to slowly stream in the oil, and we can do it all at once. Make your life easier, make cleanup easier.
Looks good. Give it a taste, Josh.
Let's check this out.
Josh, a dirty boy.
Salty, it's tangy. I think it's delicious. And I think it tastes way different than anything that I've bought just like strictly out of a bottle before.
Is there something that sticks out to you?
This tastes like a more powerful version of a Caesar that I would get at any Italian restaurant. Like
makes
a
sense.
watery, thin Caesar with all the extra flavor you want that like actually hits you.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really nice.
So I think that it needs more seasoning. I already tasted it, and to me, like, you got to think about the canvas, like we were talking about earlier. It needs more salt.
So seasoning in this case is salt.
Seasoning is always salt. If a chef tells you it needs seasoning, it needs salt. Don't grab the garlic powder. Don't
right.
be that guy.
So we're gonna hit it with a little bit.
So we're gonna hit it with some more salt. A good heavy pinch. That's good. A little more black pepper. But for me, I do make an anchovy heavy Caesar. You can probably taste that.
I think so.
Yeah. So also at this point, you have a couple options. You could add more oil if you wanted it to be a thicker Caesar. But for me, this is great and it's nice to dress. But the difference between using an immersion blender and using a whisk to make a Caesar is always going to be that it's a more powerful emulsifier. So it's going to bring everything together in a tighter fashion. If you've ever tried to make mayonnaise by the whisk or with an emulsion blender, you'll know the difference. One is going to be a lot thicker, holds the emulsion tighter.
So you want it thick and tight, essentially.
Thick and tight.
All right,
Sounds good to me. Now, croutons.
let's go.
So we're gonna get into making our croutons now, and first you wanna check out what kind of bread you wanna use. For me, the optimal bread for a crouton will always be sourdough. I think it adds a lot of flavor. We're gonna be cutting that up into bite-sized cubes. I see a lot of people using their hands to rip it apart, but for me, it doesn't really matter too much. I don't notice much of a difference, but we're gonna make sure that we season that up beautifully. So for me, I like to use olive oil for this. You could also use butter, and make sure you're using a little more than you think you need. That bread is really absorbent and we want to pack a lot of flavor into it. It's going to get a little bit of dried herbs, some garlic powder, some Italian seasoning, some onion powder, salt, black pepper, and just a touch of MSG. You've already heard me talk about that enough. So this is going to get put on a foil-lined baking sheet and into the oven at 325 for about 45 minutes. I prefer to use a little bit of a lower heat on there and let it take longer. I don't want anything to burn, but I definitely want it to be dried out and crispy. So now that we've got all the components done, we're gonna get into building our salad. I've got some cleaned and chopped up romaine. Gonna be dressing the side of the bowl, which is one of the first techniques that I learned when I was working at garde station at restaurants. Gonna add in our croutons and then liberally season with some salt and black pepper. I'm gonna be using my hand to mix this up, and I always recommend that you do as well. I don't have any gloves here, but it's just for me and Josh, so I think we're gonna be okay. God gave us these meat palms for a reason, so we're gonna use it to make sure that we get all of those greens dressed up. Now we can build up our salad, and we're gonna shave some fresh Parmesan right on top. And that to me is a perfect and classic Caesar salad. And since we already put all that effort into making the dressing, I thought I would show you guys another application for using it. So what I have here is just a boneless pork loin that we're gonna be cutting in half and then pounding out thin. We're gonna be using a 3-part dredging station to dredge that up, and then we're gonna fry it to make some pork katsu. So here I'm going to be laying down some plastic wrap on my cutting board just to make it a little bit cleaner and easier. Going to lay down both of my pork loins and then another piece of plastic wrap right on top. Going to pound these out. Here I don't have a hammer, so I'm just going to be using the back of a pan, which works great. I'm showing Josh how to do this, letting him take out all of his anger on these little pork chops. Seasoning both sides liberally with salt, then using 3 little sheet trays to make our 3-part dredging station. The first of which is going to get just some all-purpose flour. The next is going to get a couple of eggs, and the third one will get some panko. If you can, I like to get the bigger panko that you can find in an Asian supermarket. Here I am doing a little demo for Josh, showing him it goes in the flour first, then the eggs, and then into the panko, pressing down using the wet hand, dry hand method to make sure that you don't get clubbed fingers, and pressing down on those pork chops to make sure that all that panko stays on tightly. So now that I did a little demo for Josh, he wanted to get into doing the next pork chop, and almost immediately he goes rogue, forgets everything I showed him, those fingers club up, and this is the part that really always gets me. He goes in with the second hand and just starts pounding that meat like it's another Saturday night alone, fingers clubbed up. This was stressful for me. The boy lacks finesse, but we're gonna get him there.
It worked out exactly like I thought.
So now we're gonna get into frying our pork chops. So I got a pan on medium heat that we're gonna fill up with about 1 inch of neutral oil. Gonna let that heat up and then throw in our pork chops. It's gonna take about 2 minutes per side. Gonna make sure those are nice and crispy and cooked through. We want about a medium when we're cooking pork. I don't like to overcook my pork. I know a lot of people freak out about that, but to me, a medium is perfect. Gonna take those off and lay them on a wired rack and season with some salt again. And then just a touch of togarashi as well, because I like to add a little bit of heat to that. Look at how beautiful and crispy these guys are. Perfect. And now we're gonna switch it up on the greens for this one. So I got some little gems and a little bit of radicchio. I like the way that the radicchio's bitterness cuts through the fattiness of the pork. So I'm just gonna take out the core, clean those up and chop them up. Get a little bit of Caesar in our bowl, some of the gems and some of the radicchio. Once again, we're gonna go liberal on the salt and black pepper here. Mix it up with those meat palms. Now that our pork is rested for a couple minutes, we're gonna slice those guys up. Just take a look how juicy that is. That is perfect for me. So now we're gonna plate up our pork. It's gonna get brushed with a little bit more of that Caesar dressing and then topped with our greens. Finished off with a little bit of Parmesan. And there we have it, a beautiful pork katsu Caesar. So there we have it, our homemade Caesar dressing and 2 different applications for using it.
2 Caesars. So I think what I just wanted to show Josh today is that the Caesar is a delicious salad when done correctly.
As if I didn't know.
You don't know shit.
Okay.
But it's also super versatile, and there are a lot of different ways that you can apply it. So don't just think to toss it on some greens. There are a lot of ways to go about it. You can use it to toss in just about anything, and it'll be pretty good.
It's great.
Tell us more, Josh.
If you had a Caesar like this every time you went somewhere, you'd be pumped, but you never get it this way. The Cheesecake Factory definitely has a better one than yours.
Yeah,
Of course.
They have things that they're better chefs.
They have better ingredients. It's just a different thing. Shout out Cheesecake, though. If you do want to sponsor us, we're good.
Yeah, we're done.
But this is really good. It kind of has everything you want.
It's acidic though, right?
It's really tangy. I don't want to say sour, but it's perfect.
That is shaved Parmesan versus grated. I go back and forth, but I really like to have those pieces of Parmesan.
Yeah. No, it's great. And this could be like the appetizer, or this could be like a full meal.
A full meal. Put this all in a wrap. You're in good shape.
Now let's try a little piece of this pork. No, that's great. If you went to someone's house and got served this for dinner, not plated, just in a bowl, whatever, you'd be jazzed. Beautiful pork katsu.
It's all about seasoning it and what you serve it with. Like radicchio on its own, you can keep it, but
No.
I like an endive too.
Bitter.
I like it. It's a real fatty piece of pork that we got here.
Sure is, sweetie.
But thanks, guys. We're out here making salads. We're changing the world one meal at a time. Or Josh's world at the very least.
And we don't do this because we want to. We do it because we have to.
Yes.
So,
Please subscribe.
thank you. Yep. Please subscribe. Join us. We'll keep going.
Gonna keep teaching this man how to cook some food.